So I'm briefly going to talk about back to school. I'm not going back to school this year. I finished school, so it's good to know. But again, something that I didn't notice when I was at school, particularly when I got the third year, and I talked about a few things. So just bear with me. There's a good few things I want to talk about. So first of all, the book wetler schemes. Some schools do have them. Some schools don't have them. The school I went to in third year, when I was in third year, leave doing the junior sort. They brought it in after the junior sort. We use books, we cycle books more or less, instead of having parents going out and buying them more or less wetted them, you pay cheaper. Take for example, you went out a science book, a maths book, an SPHE book, a CSPE book. You wetted out for 30 years, all for 30 years, right? Decent enough, compared to going out and buying them. Because I do remember having to buy books in fifth year. And it was well, not in fifth year, but in second year. It was in second year, yeah. Sorry, I said fifth year, second year. And it was pretty expensive. Even first year was pretty expensive. Having to buy a good lot of books. It was a good lot of money. It was nearly, I think it was upwards nearly of €100 or so for books and for copy books and for material. And that's not even counting insurance and things like that. So I do encourage, and especially principals, and even in primary schools too, encourage primary schools to to recycle, to reuse the books instead of having them thrown out. Instead of having parents buying them, they can use them and can wet them. And that's more preferable than having wasting more paper and buying more books and saving a bit of money for the mother and father. So I do recommend primary schools and secondary schools to do that. And obviously it's a huge burden on, it should be all across the country, in every national school and every secondary school just have a wet scheme, a little bit cheaper. Pay €30 for say 15 or 30 books, whatever. This is a good deal compared to going out and paying €30. One book was €30. I remember having to buy my science book, and then we had to buy another science book. There was two science books I had to buy separately. And that was good €30 for just them two books. For 1 year. We only used them for 1 year, and then it was a different book. That was in first year. Stupid if you ask me, but again, what do I know? But then again, there's the school uniforms, and I talk briefly about the school uniform. Again, school uniforms, they're not cheap. The school uniforms we had to get the crest put on them and everything like that. It was good for your money. You had to go to person that sews the crests on. And you have to buy the uniform first, and then you have to get the crest sewn on. In some cases, sometimes it depends where you go. It has them. Single sewing machine sometimes have to put on the crest, but the majority of the time the crest is already on it. But again, it isn't expensive. It is expensive for the trousers, for the short, for the top. It is expensive. And I did talk about this before. But school jackets, and I did write to Minister Norma Foley about it. And basically, at least in fairness, I got word from a private secretary about it, and she has reported on to Minister Foley. I wouldn't even call him Mrs. Foley. But yeah, basically, it is a huge waste of money, because again, everybody should, especially when it's outside of school, I understand not wearing it in classrooms and things like that, the jackets, non-school jackets, that's understandable. We're not really now, because the windows are wide open and people are getting pneumonia already sitting in the classrooms. So there should be a little bit. It should basically just be left to it, because how cold it is in some of the classrooms, because the windows are wide open. But obviously outside the school and things like outside when the buses are going home, I think you should be allowed to wear your own jacket. To be totally honest with you, I think you should be allowed. And that's as simple as that. To be totally honest, because again, buying school jumpers and jackets and things like that, just because this principal of the school said so. It is a huge cost. It is a huge cost, and as I go back to talk about this, as one student did say in my school once he got onto the local media, and he was talking about it and saying that teachers go around with big jackets, at school time and everything like that, and they don't wear a uniform. They just go around with big leather jackets and etc. 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 And he had a point. He does have a point that it's not fair that teachers don't have a uniform if students have a uniform. It is fair and it's true enough. Because everybody knows young people like to wear their own thing, I suppose. So you can't really oppress them, I suppose. But the next thing too is PE uniforms. So a lot of schools have bought this in the last few years. And I think it's stupid, to be totally honest. I think it's better if you wear what you want to wear, obviously within the limits. You can't go in your underpants, let's say, for example. But in obviously the limits, obviously go in, if you feel comfortable, take for example, I was going to PE, I feel comfortable maybe in this or this tracksuit, I suppose. You know, I would rather go in that than take, for example, a school jumper. And I do remember they did bring in the school jumpers when I was when I was going in, when I done the junior something was going into the fifth year. And they bought in the top, they did bring in trousers. No, actually they did bring in trousers, sorry. They did. You were allowed to wear your own shoes. That was the only thing. And then obviously a t-shirt underneath too. And it was a good total. It was €60 they had to pay for that whole lot. €60. And that's a lot. That is a lot. For school, just because. And again, it's kind of that money. You have to wonder. You really just have to wonder. Does it go to Minister Number 40? Or where does it go? Because I don't really see it going to the education system to educate children. It seems like it goes into a black hole in the Department of Education and never seen again. But yeah, and then obviously there's locker fees, etc., etc., etc. And then you obviously have your insurance, you have your other fees for different things. And then obviously not even talking the buses, you have to pay 300 and something a year for a bus. It's expensive. It's expensive. It is very expensive now for you, especially if you have more than one child. It's very expensive. I know one brother that had 6 children. Imagine that, putting them through secondary school. I know on different levels. I mean, one of them was when I was at school. One of them was going into first year. One of them was in 6th year national school. There was 2 in 5th year. And I don't know what the other ones were. I think they were either in I don't know what other years they were. I remember there was 2 in my year. I know 2 in 5th year. No, sorry, 2 in 5th year. And then there was 1 in 1st year. Then there was 1 in 6th class. I don't know where the other 3 were. I don't know what. I think there was 1 in 3rd year. I can't. It doesn't matter on it, but you get what I'm saying. Imagine having to buy different books for different years. Imagine having to do that, going to Easton's and buy them. Or even pencils, pens, etc., etc., etc. It's a cost. It does cost. It does cost people a lot. But it's not fair. So-called free education isn't so-called free education. But see, they always get you in the way, the state in this country. They always get you. They say something's free, and then they charge you. Isn't it great? It's just great. You wouldn't trust the number 41, but I do recommend to schools to start book rector schemes because it is good. It is good to start, and it causes less burdens on the mothers and fathers having to worry about it. As you know, I think 1 out of 7 mothers and fathers have to borrow money to send their children back to school. And that is that's not a figure to be looking down on or into that, because there's people having to borrow money from loan sharks, and obviously get into trouble with loan sharks, things like that. But my advice to anybody, because I even knew one person at the time, their mother had to go to a loan shark to take out money, and thankfully she was able to pay it back in time or into that. But the loan shark would have probably put up the money and charged interest and this interest. She would have been probably paying an almighty amount of money. But again, these people prey on these people who are desperate. And I wouldn't go near them. I would talk to the school, your school. I would talk to your principal, because I'm sure they have funding in the school to give to you for your son or your daughter's education if you can't afford to buy equipment or whatever. Because it's not your fault. It's not your fault. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the discussion. You pay your taxes for a reason. It doesn't go into a black hole. But anyway, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.